Hello students, today we are going to start the next kingdom, that is the kingdom Protista. In previous lecture we have seen the kingdom Monera. The example of this kingdom Monera is the bacteria. We have seen the characteristics of the kingdom Monera, their groups as Archaebacteria, Eubacteria, their examples as the cyanobacteria, mycoplasma. Now we are going to discuss the next kingdom, that is the kingdom Protista. This kingdom Protista are the second kingdom, and some of the important characteristics of this kingdom that now we are going to discuss here. That is, this kingdom Protista are nothing but they are single cell eukaryotes. They are the single cell eukaryotes. Means, as you remember that in a tabular form in the first lecture of this biological classification, we have seen that only the kingdom Monera is the prokaryote, but from kingdom the Protista to the kingdom Animalia, all these four kingdoms are eukaryote. That means kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Plantae, and kingdom Animalia. All these four kingdoms are the eukaryotes. But the important characteristics of this kingdom Protista is that even though it is eukaryotic, but it has only one cell, that is the single cell. But from kingdom Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia, all these kingdoms are, even though they are eukaryotic, they are also multicellular, but only one type of the kingdom which is eukaryotic, but it is single cell. So this property or these characteristics of the Protista is very important. It may be asked from the for the MCQ point of view for NEET exam. Next point is that this kingdom Protista has the another characteristics that they are eukaryotic. That's why they have well developed nucleus. They have well developed nucleus and nuclear membrane. Well developed nucleus and nuclear membrane, because we have seen that when there is a eukaryotic cell, then the nucleus is well developed, nuclear membrane is well developed. So this is the second characteristics of kingdom Protista. Third characteristics of the kingdom Protista is that this kingdom, or the examples of these kingdoms, are primarily aquatic. Means majority of them are found in the water, but they can also observe on the land, on the terrestrial place. So even though they are primarily aquatic, some of them are also found on the land. Okay, they may have cilia or flagella. They may have cilia or flagella. That means cilia and flagella, these are the locomotive organelles which may be found in the organisms which are found in the kingdom Protista. Cilia means thin hair-like structure which is present on the body, as well as flagella means these are elongated, longer in length than the cilia, and it is also present on the body of this organism. It may be single or more than two or three. So there are cilia and flagella, which is the locomotive organelle, are found in this kingdom Protista. And the last characteristics is that the reproduction which is found in the Protista may be of two types, sexual and asexual. So reproduction is by asexual and the sexual method. Asexual and sexual method. Now we have seen that number of times asexual reproduction and the sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction includes only one parent. There will be division of the organism by the process called as binary fission. There may be spore formation. Such a different methods you will find in this asexual type of reproduction. And the sexual type of reproduction includes the cell fusion, or there may be the zygote formation. Cell fusion means if it is the two cells, they get fused together. One may be from the male parent, another may be from the female parent. So there is a sexual mode of reproduction, that is the fusion of the two different cells. There may be found the zygote formation. When male parent produce sperm, female parent produce the egg, and there will be fusion and there will be zygote formation. So it is a sexual type of reproduction. This sexual and asexual type of reproduction you will find in this kingdom Protista. Now this kingdom Protista is divided mainly into 5 groups. Okay, so important characteristics of the kingdom Protista is that single cell eukaryotes, they have the nucleus well developed, they have well developed nuclear membrane, they may have cilia or flagella as their locomotor organelle. With the help of it they can move from one place to another place. They are primarily aquatic but they may found on the land also, and the reproduction is by asexual as well as by the sexual method. These 5 groups of this kingdom Protista are important because they have different characteristics and each group is asked for our exam. So the groups of this Protista are nothing but, the first group is called as Chrysophyta. Second group is the dinoflagellates. Third group is the euglenoids. Next, slime mold and protozoans. Okay, so these are the groups of the kingdom Protista, Chrysophyta, dinoflagellates, euglenoids, slime mold and the protozoans. Now we have to discuss each group very detailed because it is very important part of this biological classification or for the kingdom Protista. So we will discuss first group, that is the Chrysophyta. For the NEET point of view, these questions which are asked from these groups are mainly based on its example. So first you are well known about, or you should clear about the examples of each group. So this Chrysophyta group includes 2 important examples, and these are the first example is diatoms, and the second example is desmid. This desmid is also called as the golden algae. It is also called as the golden algae. Okay, which are the 2 examples? Diatoms and the desmids. Desmids is also called as the golden algae, and the trick to remember the examples of this Chrysophyta is the CD square. So trick is that CD square. C for Chrysophyta and D square means the diatoms and the desmids. Okay, here we have to discuss the important characteristics of this Chrysophyta. Which are the important characteristics of this Chrysophyta that we are discussing here? And this Chrysophyta group mainly includes the characteristics, and those characteristics are that these Chrysophyta are found in both marine as well as freshwater. What is the habitat? That is, they found in marine and freshwater. That means you will find these animals mostly in water. That's why marine and freshwater, these are the 2 forms of the water. When they are present, or when means almost they are found in water. In the water, they float on the surface of the water. They float passively on the surface of the water, and the term which is given to the organism which float on the surface of water are called as a plankton. So they are called as plankton because they float on the surface of the water passively, not actively. Only they are remain present on the surface of the water. That's why they are called as the plankton. Next characteristic is that most of these chrysophyta are photosynthetic. So third one is that most of it are photosynthetic. Photosynthetic means by using the light energy they can prepare their food, that we call as a photosynthetic. Okay, now the important thing is that these diatoms, which are called as the chief producers of the ocean, because they are found in the ocean, and majority of the photosynthetic activities carried out by these diatoms. They form the food for the itself as well as to other organisms which are present in that habitat, and so they are called as the chief producers of the ocean. So if we discuss this diatom part, now we have to remember that these diatoms are called as chief producers of the oceans. So diatoms are nothing but chief producers of ocean. This thing is very important because number of times this question is asked, that is dot organism is the chief producers of the oceans. Why it is called a chief producer? Because major photosynthetic activity is carried out by these diatoms in the oceans. This is the one point. Next point, that is these diatoms. Second point is that these diatoms have the cell wall. Second characteristic is that their cell wall is in the form of thin overlapping shells. It is in the form of thin overlapping shells. That means there are two layers which are very thin, overlap over each other, and it looks like the soap box. It looks like the soap box. ओके, सोप बॉक्स म्हणजे साबण ठेवण्याचा बॉक्स कसा असतो त्या पद्धतीने दोन सेल वॉलच्या लेअर असतात, त्या थिन असतात, एकमेकावर ओव्हरलॅप झालेले असतात, आणि त्यामुळं त्या आपल्याला कशा पाहायला मिळतात तर त्या एखाद्या सोप बॉक्स सारख्या पाहायला मिळतात. इट्स सेल वॉल इज ऑल्सो मेड अप ऑफ द सिलिका. Silica is a substance which form the cell wall of this diatom. It is very hard substance due to which these diatoms cannot be break down due to their cell wall, because cell wall is made up of silica, and silica is in non-destructible or non-breakable component which do not break these diatoms easily. One important thing is that these diatoms form the diatomous earth. They form the diatomous earth. Diatomous earth means what? Where they are present, they deposit their cell wall in that place, and due to which that cell wall deposit get mixed in the soil, and after several years the cell wall deposition takes place in the soil which is made up of the silica, and due to which the soil becomes diatomous, and that is called as the diatomous earth. सेल वॉल जो आहे त्याचा तो डिपॉझिट करतात त्याची काही पॉईंट, त्या काही पार्ट त्या सॉईलमध्ये, आणि त्यामुळे सॉईल कशी बनते तर डायटमस अर्थ बनते, आणि त्यामुळं द सॉईल बिकम्स ग्रिटी. ग्रिटी मीन्स खरबडेल, अँड सच अ ग्रिटी सॉईल इज यूज फॉर डिफरंट पर्पजेस, लाईक फॉर फिल्ट्रेशन, लाईक फॉर filtration of syrups, oils, or for polishing. Such a gritty soil which is made due to the deposition of the cell wall of the diatoms become gritty one, and such a gritty soils are used for making the filtration of the oils and syrup as well as for different polishing purposes. So these are the important things of the diatoms from the kingdom, from the group Chrysophyta. Generally, the things which are not given for the golden algae, for the desmid, but majority of part is given in the Chrysophyta is from this diatom. So we'll revise again this chrysophyta. The trick is CD square, C for chrysophyta and D for the D square for the diatoms and the desmids. Now important things is that they are marine as well as freshwater. They are mostly photosynthetic. They are called as a plankton because they float passively on the surface of the water. These most of them are photosynthetic, no doubt. The diatoms, which is example of this chrysophyta, are called as the producers of the ocean. These diatoms generally have the cell wall, which is made up of two thin overlapping shells or layers, and these layers looks like the soap box. Then the cell wall is made up of the hard substance called silica, so they do not easily break down. These diatoms, where they are present, always deposit the cell wall into the soil, so that soil is called as the diatomous earth or diatomous soil. Due to mixing of the cell wall in the soil, the soil become gritty, and such a soil is used for the filtration purpose, for the filtration of oil syrup as well as for the polishing purpose. So this is about the kingdom Protista, and example is the chrysophyta. So see carefully. Our next example is from the second group, and that is the next to chrysophyta. Second one is the dinoflagellates. Dinoflagellates. Dino, the name itself indicates they have the two flagella. Dino means D-I, two, and flagella. They has the two flagella. So we'll see the first characteristics of this dinoflagellates. They are mostly the marine one. Majority of them are found in the marine water. They are mostly photosynthetic like the chrysophyta. The important characteristics of this group is that they have different pigments like yellow, orange, brown, blue, red colored pigment are found in their body. Most of the example of it is gonalex, which rapidly multiply in the ocean, which is red in color, and due to their numerous number in the ocean, the tides of the oceans becomes red in color, so it is also called as the red tide. But one of the drawback of this gonalex is that they release the toxin, and that toxin mostly kill the other aquatic animals. So here we'll discuss the second group, and that is called as the dinoflagellates. Okay, now what is the important is there that we are going to study here, that is example see here. Gonalex is the example. Okay, characteristics are that dinoflagellates are mostly marine as well as photosynthetic. Marine, photosynthetic. Second one, they have different types of pigments, and the pigments may be colored like yellow, brown, blue, or red colored pigment are present in their body. So example given is here, that is the gonalex has a red pigment in their body. That's why they looks like red in color, and so this gonalex, when multiply, reproduce in the water, their number becomes increasing, and they produce the red tides. What is mean by red tides? That is, the number of these gonolics are more in number. That's why that water looks red in color, and the tides of that waters are also red in color. So it is called as a red tides, and red tides are due to these gonolics which are red in color due to the presence of pigment red. The important thing of these gonolics is that they release toxin, or they produce toxin, and this toxin kills other aquatic organisms. So it is very harmful to other organisms because it releases the toxin, and that toxin kills the other organisms. Second thing is that if we see the cell wall of this dinoflagellates, or all the members of this dinoflagellate, the cell wall is made up of stiff cellulose. Cell wall is made up of the cellulose, and that cellulose is very hard one, non-breakable. That is called as the stiff cellulose is there, and their cell wall is made up of the stiff cellulose. So see here, the second group, that is the dinoflagellates. Example of the dinoflagellates is the gonolics. So no trick is there because only one example is given in NCERT. But if the question is asked that red tides are due to, so the meaning of that is the gonolics. Okay. Second one is that the gonolics belongs to the group. Then example is the dinoflagellates. Which group of the Protista has various types of the pigment? Then the answer is the dinoflagellates, because only one group of this Protista has the different types of the pigments. Okay, so second and last question is that silica is a component of the cell wall of the chrysophyta, example diatoms, and stiff cellulose is a component of the cell wall of the dinoflagellates. So second question may be asked upon the cell wall. So stiff cellulose is the characteristics of the dinoflagellates, ultimately example gonolics, and the silica is the characteristics of the diatom, example given here, that is the group given here, that is the chrysophyta. So this is about the dinoflagellate. We'll revise again. Gonolics is example. Majority of them are marine. They are also photosynthetic. Pigments are found in it. It is the characteristics of it. Maybe red color, yellow, brown, blue, etc. Gonolics is a red colored body, or it has a red pigment, and when it is present in the water it multiplies rapidly due to the all water there becomes red in color, and they produce the red tides. So red tides are due to the gonolics, as well as these gonolics produce some of the toxins in that water which kills the other aquatic animals, and the stiff cellulose is the characteristics of this gonolics. Okay, so this is about the dinoflagellate. Now we'll discuss the third group, and that is the euglenoids. So these euglenoids are important because these euglenoids has characteristics of that plant and water. Third group, euglenoids. Example, euglena. All of you, some of you are well known about this euglena. See here. This is the structure of the euglena. This one is called as flagella of this euglena. Trick is that EE, euglenoids belongs to the euglena. Okay, so characteristic trick is that EE. Now we discuss the characteristics of this euglena, and these characteristics has that they are, majority of them are freshwater, or you may say that they are the freshwater organism in river, streams. It is a freshwater body in which this euglena is observed. They are freshwater, found in stagnant water. Stagnant water means the water which is stable, constant. It is not running. That means the water of the pond is the stagnant water. But water of the river is not stagnant. So स्थिर पाणी असलेल्या ठिकाणी वॉटरमध्ये तुम्हाला हे युग्लिनाट्स पाहायला मिळतात. ओके, युग्लिनाटचे ग्रुपचं एक्झाम्पल युग्लिना पाहायला मिळतं. सेकंड कॅरेक्टरिस्टिक्स आपल्याला याची अशी सांगता येईल की युग्लिनाट्सची इम्पॉर्टंट कॅरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ही आहे युग्लिनाची. दे डू नॉट हॅव द सेल वॉल. सो सेल वॉल इज ॲबसेंट. In the tabular form, we have seen that in the group Protista, some organism has the cell wall, some do not have the cell wall. Diatom have cell wall, desmids has cell wall, gonolix has cell wall, but this euglena do not have cell wall. So cell wall is absent in this euglena. It is very important. And instead of that cell wall, body of the euglena is covered by the protein-rich layer, and that is called as the pellicle. So cell wall is absent, but body is covered by pellicle. And what is the characteristics of this pellicle? Pellicle is the protein-rich layer which surround the body of this euglena and make the body of euglena flexible. Flexible means leuchit. It cannot be break down. Okay, like the rubber. Okay, it can bend by any way, but it is not breakable. That is called the flexible. So body of the euglena become flexible due to presence of this pellicle layer, and this pellicle layer is present instead of the cell wall, and it is made up of the protein rich layer. Another important characteristic is that they have two flagella. Euglena has two flagella, one short and the one long. So one flagella is short and other is long. So it has the two flagella, which is a locomotive organelle in this euglena, and this flagella is important for the locomotion to euglena. One is short and other one is the long. This euglena is called as the connecting link between the plants and animals. Second characteristic is that it is connecting link. Between plants and animals. Why? Because when sunlight is there, this euglena can prepare the food like that of the plant. But when sunlight is not there, this euglena acts like the animals, that is the heterotrophs. So here connecting link between plants and animals, that sometimes it behave like the plant, that means carry photosynthesis, may be heterotropic, and when the light is not available, it behaves like the animals, and that is called as the connecting link to the animals. So these are the important characteristics which belong to this euglena, and so this euglena is mainly freshwater organism found in the stagnant water, particularly in the pond. Their cell wall is absent. Instead of cell wall, a protein-rich layer is present around their body, which we call as a pellicle. Due to the pellicle, it gives the flexibility to the euglena's body. Next one is that they have the two flagella, one short flagella and another one is the long flagella. They show the characteristics of both plant and animals for photosynthetic activity. That's why they are called as the connecting link between the plants and animals. See here, the important thing is that connecting link to the plant and animal only because of their photosynthetic and non-photosynthetic activity. Other characteristics of the plants or the animals are not present in there. Sometimes they have the pigments like of the plant. That's why they can carry out the photosynthesis. And when sunlight is not available, they look like the animal. So which questions are very important from this group for me point of view? That is the example of this class is the euglena, and it is very clear that is name is euglenoids of that group and the example is the euglena. So it is very easy to remember the example. Second thing is that they are almost fresh water. Okay, that is a fauning stagnant water. Third important characteristics is that cell wall is totally absent in this euglenoid, and instead of cell wall the question may be asked that which structure is present, that is called as a protein rich pellicle. They have the two flagella. It is also important that two flagella are present in euglena, one short and the one long, and the connecting link between plants and animals is nothing but the euglena. So which questions may be asked that connecting link between plants and animals, euglena, and connecting link between the kingdoms fungi, plantae, animalia, means the answer is the which group? That is the Protista. Okay, so don't be confused. Connecting link between fungi, plantae, animalia, kingdom means kingdom Protista, and connecting link between the plants and animals is the answer of the euglena. So these two questions are very important here, and very little points are there which we have to focus very carefully, because as I told you in the first lecture that for NEET point of view, line to line questions are asked, and there is possibility of the questions like this from the euglenoids. Now we will discuss the fourth group of this Protista, and that is the slime mold, which is mostly similar to the kingdom fungi. That's why in the first point we have seen that here if you observe this group, it shows the characteristics of the kingdom Plantae, kingdom Animalia, and now the group that we are going to discuss here, it shows similarity to the fungi, so we have called it as the Protista group shows similarity to kingdom fungi, kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia. So next point is that is the slime mold. Slime mold, and the trick of it is SS, that is the saprophytic. Third group is slime mold, and the example of slime mold is nothing but saprophytic. Not we call it as an example, but characteristics is that it is saprophytic. What is meant by saprophytic? The organisms which feeds on dead and decayed matter, that we call as a saprophytic. Mostly fungi are saprophytic, but one group from the Protista that is called as the slime mold are the saprophytic. Okay, so here we will see the characteristics of this slime mold. First thing is that these slime molds are called as the saprophytic Protista. So it is very important that which Protista are called as the saprophytic. Their answer is the slime mold. Then what happened? This slime mold during the favorable condition, चांगल्या पोषक वातावरणामध्ये come together. They all the slime molds from the surrounding under the favorable condition come together. They form the group, and the group of that slime mold under favorable conditions is called as the plasmodium. Okay, that means during the favorable condition only they come together and form a group that we call as a plasmodium. But when there is an unfavorable condition, then that group become dispersed, they spread everywhere, and at their tip of each organism from that group, they form the spore. That spore has the true wall, that means they have true cell wall. And under favorable condition, again these spore germinate and they again form the parent-like saprophytic protista. Okay, what we are here discussing here about this slime mold, how during favorable condition they come together, how during unfavorable condition they disperse from each other, they form a spore at its tips. That spore has the true cell wall, and during favorable condition again that spore germinate and form the new saprophytic protista. So here we will see that slime mold are saprophytic protista during favorable condition. During favorable condition, they come together, make a group, make an aggregation, and that group of the slime molds are called as plasmodium. So it is very important. Plasmodium, it is not the organism which causes the disease malaria, but this plasmodium is nothing but the group which is made by the slime mold under favorable condition, and that group we call it as a plasmodium. This group spread several inches because it is large one. All the saprophytes come together and form a group in the favorable condition, during favorable condition, and that group is called as a plasmodium. It is spread several inch or very long to the surrounding. But in unfavorable condition, unfavorable condition, this group disturb and the aggregation become breakdown and all these organisms spread from each other. But at the time of spreading, these individuals from this group plasmodium form the spore at its tips. So spore at its tip, that means the organism after separation from that group plasmodium looks like the fruiting bodies, like the fruit. Their body becomes like the fruit. प्लाझ्मोडियम ग्रुपमधून बाहेर आल्यानंतर प्रत्येक ऑर्गॅनिझम तुम्हाला एखाद्या फ्रूट सारखा पाहायला मिळतो, फ्रुटिंग बॉडी सारखा पाहायला मिळतो. अँड ॲट द टिप ऑफ दॅट फ्रुटिंग बॉडी दे फॉर्म these spores. Okay, these spores can avoid the unfavorable condition. Unfavorable condition avoid करण्यासाठी या spores आपल्याला उपयोग झालेला पाहायला मिळतो स्लाइम मोल्ड मध्ये. Okay, these spores can be spread by air current to several meters, and after spreading at a particular place they can germinate and form the new slime molds. So these spores are only produced to avoid the unfavorable condition, and at that unfavorable condition only they are produced at the tip of that slime mold. That slime mold becomes the fruiting body, and this spore can germinate very long due to the air current, and at the same time here they will germinate and form the slime mold. So see here, this slime mold is the fourth group of the kingdom Protista. Example is that all saprophytic Protista. Here saprophytic means they are also called as the cleaner of the environment. Dead and decaying body can be removed from the surrounding, can be cleaned by the saprophytes because it is their food. They in the favorable condition come together, form a group or aggregation, and the name of that group is called as the plasmodium. In the unfavorable condition, this plasmodium group separate from each other. They form the body like the fruit, At the tip of their body, they form the spores. These spores can survive the unfavorable condition. They can move from one place to another place by the air current. These spores later on germinate and form the new body like that of the slime mold. So this is the fourth group of kingdom Protista, that is the slime mold. And now we will see the last group of the Protista, and that is the protozoans, which is the group somewhat shows similarity to the animal. That's why it is also called as the primitive animal. So next and last one is called as the protozoan. Fifth group, protozoans, which is also called as the primitive animals, because most of the characteristics of these protozoans are similar to that of the animals, so that's are called as the primitive animals. In these protozoans, the characteristics is that they are predator or parasitic. Predator or parasitic. Second characteristics is that similar to the animal. And these are divided mainly into the four groups according to their locomotive organ and the other structures, and those are included into, first one is, the name is given that amoeboid protozoans. Second one is flagellated protozoans. Third one is ciliated protozoans, and the fourth characteristics is that sporozoans. Fourth group is the sporozoans. See here, last group is the protozoans. There are again four examples or four groups are there: amoeboid protozoans, flagellated protozoans, ciliated protozoans, and the sporozoans. Okay, amoeboid protozoans means they has the locomotive organ. Pseudopodia example is amoeba and the entamoeba. Flagellated protozoans, they have the flagella as a locomotive organ. Example is the trypanosoma, which is mainly responsible for the disease sickle sickness or sleeping disease. Ciliated protozoans, example is the paramecium, which mainly has the cilia as the locomotive organ, and the sporozoan example is the plasmodium. Okay, so we will discuss last part. These protozoans are called primitive animals. Why? Because they show the characteristics similar to the animals. They are mostly predators, feeds on the other animals, that we call as the predators, or parasitic, that means they are present inside the body of the other organism. Characters show similar to animals, that's why we call as the primitive animals. There are again four groups of these protozoans. Amoeboid protozoan, example of it is amoeba and entamoeba histolytica. Flagellated protozoans, example of it is trypanosoma. Ciliated protozoan, paramecium, and the sporozoan, plasmodium. See again here the pseudopodia is the locomotive organelle, flagella is the locomotive organelle, cilia is the locomotive organelle, and in the sporozoan there is no particular locomotive organelle we will find, but they are mostly the parasitic. So here we have seen in today's lecture the some point of the kingdom Protista. In the kingdom Protista, we have seen the three groups: Chrysophyta, Dinoflagellates, and the Euglenites. And we have just started the fifth group, Chrysophyte, Euglenoids, then Dinoflagellates, and slime molds. These four groups we have discussed, and the fifth group that we are discussing is the protozoan. Okay, this point is very important. That means in the Chrysophyta we have seen example diatoms and desmids. Desmids are also called as the golden algae. Second one is the dinoflagellate. The example eugonoids. Euglenoids, the example is euglena, and from the slime mold example is the saprophytic Protista. Okay, the next part of it will be continuing next section. Thank you.